Lemon Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga Play Guide and Review. This time we'll be checking out Zool 2. This was developed by the Warp Factory and published by Gremlin Graphics in 1993. The game begins with an animated introduction sequence where we can see 1993 Gremlin Graphics Software Limited, and we'll be playing the ECS version in this particular playthrough. We can change between the music and the sound effects, and we can change the difficulty between normal, easy and hard, and we can also change players between 1 player and 2 player. Not quite sure if that's 2 players simultaneous action. And now we can press start to start the game itself, and then we can also choose our main character between a male and a female ninja from the nth dimension. Give us a basic stage introduction screen where we get also blank spaces where we can pick up some more bonus items within each level of the game. In Zool 2 we play as a ninja from the nth dimension, and he isn't a ninja ant according to all the material, but according to what I've read, maybe it was supposed to be an ant at one stage. Not quite sure, but this is the sequel, of course, to the original Zool, which was also released by Gremlin Graphics in 1992. The aim of the game is to pick up various bonuses that are scattered around the level, and we'll get 10 score for collecting those bonuses, which on the first level are in the shape of rubber ducks and items that you might see lying around, snakes and what look like leaves and other things, turkey legs, whatever that might be. And so you can also see some enemies who are firing missiles towards us, and we can jump out of pits, and we can avoid the enemies on the level by pressing fire. We can also release our ninja sword, and that kills many of the enemies. Unfortunately not the enemies that have spikes upon them, and certain enemies can't be killed. Inside these eggs you'll also find some more bonuses. It's worth collecting those up. If you want to get the quota, you can see the quota appears in the bottom left corner of the screen. We now have 54 bonuses collected, and we're supposed to need 99 of them in order to leave the level. And you can see extra bonus there, which is the first of our bonus items collected. That's the mega bonus item, and if you collect 3 of those mega bonus items, that means we get to enter a bonus level after completing this world. And this world has 3 stages upon it, and we're on level 1.1 at the moment. Like the original Zool, we'll also have to be careful of our health, and on this particular version it gives us up to 5 health points, and in order to get some more health we'll have to collect the health hearts which are floating around, which can be released by some enemies, and those float up to the top of the screen. So if you see any health hearts, you'll need to collect those very rapidly before they disappear. And you can see something bouncing up and down, that's actually a waypoint, and there are various waypoints around the level, so if we die we'll simply respawn at the waypoint. Sometimes the levels wrap around and we can find extra bonuses in some of the levels as well. That's a bomb which floats around us, and I think if we press the space bar that will also act as a smart bomb, and those bombs, I'm not quite sure if they blow anything up on the screen or not. I think they just follow us around for a bit until we press that space bar. And now here we are at the very end of the level where it gives us some more bonuses and a nice firework display, and you can see we managed to collect the super bonus on the very first level, which was pretty easy to collect. So let's see if we can find the super bonus now on level 1.2. First world is, I think, the duck world, or maybe the swan world or something like that. You'll find ducks and swans and birds floating around the level, and eggs and things like that, so it has something to do with birds. And you can see that we can even cut through certain sections and collect special hidden bonuses in special hidden sections. And you can also see Chupa Chups as well, which is a lollipop, and that's official sponsorship in the game. And you can see sometimes we can't bash through rocks unless we are in a certain position to do that, and now we have to basically do a dive bomb onto certain rocks in order to smash them up, and then if we smash them up we can get onto these top platforms and we can use the eggs to bounce around the level. It's definitely important to explore all the areas that you can in order to find all those bonuses, and it's fun to see the chicks in the nest tweeting away as we pass them. And you can see that we can also collect full health, which is another Chupa Chups icon, and we can also collect invulnerability as well, and various other items which are going around this level, and the swans which watch us as we travel around. You can see some of them releasing health hearts. They disappear very quickly, so if you haven't collected those very quickly they'll simply disappear. I've now got 2 health available, and some of these platforms, well, sometimes we'll have to go around those the long way in order to collect enough goodies, and I really should be dropping down here and collecting that waypoint, and then we can make our way to the top of the level before we die. And dying in this game happens pretty readily, and it's fun to see that we can also have the mirror image icon as well, which gives us a mirror image of our character. And yes, it is possible to grab onto some of these ledges without getting killed, and we shouldn't be killed as long as we have this particular power up. But you can see I'm struggling at the moment, and what looks like meat hanging down on meat hooks, I've no idea, but if you miss those it's pretty infuriating to have to go around the level all over again, because sometimes if you fall off a platform it won't jump, which is really annoying. When the character really wants to jump, he'll just fall off a platform and fall to his death, and that is one of the most annoying aspects of this game. And sometimes it helps to jump on top of platforms instead of bouncing around them, and you can see it makes life pretty difficult once you've lost all of the energy in the game. We're down to 4 lives, as you can see in the bottom right corner. And so let's use our jumping ability now to hopefully get through, and look at that, completely missed the extra life. And fortunately we're on 94 collectibles now, so I really don't want to waste any more time on this section. Let's just try to find the exit from here, and then we can milk the last goodies on the way to the exit. Backgrounds will change from level to level, and the colour scheme as well, and this particular game seems to get brighter and better looking graphics as the levels continue, and so you'll find an even better copper background effect on this level. And you can see it's not just a brown colour, it has included some greys, some greens and some reds as well. Unfortunately, again, we'll have to make sure that we are holding our controller to the top right when we try to jump, otherwise he'll just fall off that platform. And I think in this top corner there's even an extra life, so if you know where those extra lives are, you can romp straight towards them, and that really helps to know that. And it also helps to pick up those health hearts and try to get those. And the ring, I'm not quite sure what that does. Maybe that gives us an extra continue, but you can see the bomb floating around, and I think you're supposed to press the space bar to activate the bomb in this particular version. And you can see there is also a cut through to the right, which we completely missed on this playthrough, and that takes us to another bonus section. So sometimes it's worth finding those cut throughs. The hardest parts is memorising where we are on that level, and it's fairly linear at this point, and as long as we make our way from the very left to the very right of the screen, hopefully we'll find the exit somewhere over on the right hand side. And going down this salami again, I've no idea why there's piles of salami on hooks hanging down on the level, but this is where the gameplay rears its ugly head, because sometimes if you miss these platforms you'll fall straight through them, and that's highly annoying, because if you fall back down, obviously you'll fall all the way back down to the ground level of the level, and that means that you can't progress. You'll have to go around the entire thing all over again, and because these enemies can't be killed because they've got spikes on them, it just means the level at this stage should be fun, and instead it's rather frustrating. Remember from Zool 1, that had a sweets introduction with a kind of a Bertie Bassett licorice all sorts, kind of a sweet background level, and that was very colourful and very fun, and it was an ultra linear level, which means you could romp through it at high speed, smashing things up, just like Sonic the Hedgehog, rushing from one bonus to another and rushing straight to the exit. First few levels of the original Zool are really great fun, and I love to do that at high speed. This game, unfortunately, it falls down at the first hurdle because the very first world is not fun, and the music isn't very fun either. It's quite bland and boring, and so you'll have to make your way through it. The graphics are kind of bland compared to the original game, and that's just because they've used the stock palettes of browns and greens and reds and a few yellows as well, and so you won't find too many purples on this level, but you will find that that changes from world to world, level to level. And so even though this game seems quite predictable and quite samey, with very similar levels going on all the way through the first world, you will find that this game opens up a bit later on and becomes more fun as well. So let's just grin and bear it through the initial world, and let's try to make our way through now to the exit. Zool 2 has kind of really good controls, but kind of not, because there is some inertia going on, and inertia spoils 99.9% of all platform games, and this one is no exception. If you run to the edge of a platform, you'll simply fall off of it, and if you're bouncing on top of a platform, you'll be sliding around it until you either jump up or you jump off of it. So sometimes you can be leaping around like a maniac. Finally, at the end of the level, we'll find the end of level guardian, or a boss, as some players might call that, and of course that takes a number of shots to defeat, and it will try to jump into the corners, and when it's jumping you're supposed to rush underneath of it, and when you rush underneath, hopefully you can jump out of the way of those indestructible blocks, and you can see the face changes as we bash down on that. Again, it's not as fun as the sweet enemy on the first level of Zool 1, and so this game doesn't, unfortunately, inspire too much confidence at this particular stage. So again, as far as I know, we completely missed the bonus on that stage, so we're now going on to Bulberry Hill stage level 1. The second world of Zool 2 really opens up the player to the actual game experience, and I think that this should have been World 1 because World 2 is much more fun, and it also has some terrific music as well, which I really do like. It's kind of an ambient house or an ambient techno score, and listening to that music, it's really relaxing, and I could listen to this particular theme forever. You can see that there are lightsabers going on the level, and we'll have to ride them, and this is an electrical level where we'll find batteries and lamps and light bulbs, and we'll also find things that we can bounce around the screen, and you can see various things which will kill us, but hopefully if we learn to bounce on this item we can avoid them, and by avoiding them we can rush straight through to that next checkpoint. So the levels aren't too complicated that it takes a long time to figure out those, and there aren't too many dead ends either, which means all roads lead towards the end of the level, which is fantastic. The only downside on this particular level is the cut-throughs. You can see, just like again Sonic the Hedgehog, those are no way backs. So once you've cut through to the next section, if you haven't collected enough goodies, unfortunately you can't go back, so that means we'll have to spend our time collecting those in order to get to the end with enough goodies to continue. Otherwise it is possible to get to the end of these levels without having enough, and I've definitely found that that is possible, and I've found that happened to me quite a few times. That's why I'm taking my time trying to collect a few of these up. The level layout is absolutely brilliant because sometimes you can fall over hidden areas as well, and you would expect to find areas that are complete dead ends and complete stuck points, but there is none of that. What you'll find is the level does continue around, and as long as we keep making our way upwards and acrosswards, we'll eventually find where we need to go. And again, we'll need to watch those cut-throughs, and at this point the enemies can fire towards us, and you'll find those spinning things also make life a little bit more difficult because we'll have to time those. Luckily we do find extra pickups and full energy just like that, so the game not afraid to hold the player's hand at this point. are, that's the end of the level already, and that means that we'll need to travel back and explode a few of these light bulbs in order to get now the last few tokens that we need. And you can see that we're up to 92, so sometimes it can be necessary to travel backwards, and that isn't always possible on all of these levels, and doing that means that you run the risk, of course, of running out of health. Luckily, again at this stage, it gives us health periodically, and the enemies respawn as well, which is an absolute really bad feature of this game, but the fact that they do respawn means you can milk them, and you can milk all the bonuses out of them. So we're up to 98 now. Surely we can collect the last few and head towards the second level of this brilliant lamp world. Unfortunately, we didn't go far out of our way to collect the super bonus. Even though it seems to have appeared on there, we didn't collect it, so that means that we can't access the bonus section, which appears, which is a kind of a bat and ball game, like an Arkanoid game, which appears at the end of certain levels, which gives us a bonus score. Looks like we revealed some bonus sections and completely ran away from that and missed it. So definitely shooting into walls is recommended, because just like that you can fire into walls, and many of them, even perhaps a third of them, will have some kind of bonus. We've picked up a time collectible, and we've also picked up some more shields, and we've also got the bomb floating around us as well. So that means we should hopefully be able to romp through the level at high speed, and by luck or by judgment we can always fall over those things, those ramps and those barriers and the boing things that's bouncing around the screen. And bouncing around the second level at high speed is actually mega fun, and that's why the second level of Zool 2 is my favourite level of the game. Code for Zool 2 was created by Andrew Finlay, who also coded Harlequin as well for Gremlin Graphics, and the graphics in this case were created by Ed Campbell, who also created the graphics for Zool 1 and Harlequin, and a very lowly rated game called Battlebound as well. And they were created by the Warp Factory, which was, I think, a subdivision of Gremlin Graphics. And the music was coded by Patrick Phelan, who also created the music for Lotus 3, Nigel Mansell's as well for Gremlin Graphics, Shadowfighter, which was an AGA game, and many more games for Gremlin Graphics. Zool 2 was released on the Amiga, also the PC-DOS machine, and even the Jaguar as well, and pretty recently it was also converted to the BlackBerry. The game was also released in 3 separate versions on the Amiga. The OCS version, which actually I think requires 1 full megabyte of memory, one of the very few games that needs that. And the OCS version, I think that makes use of, well, definitely the copper effect in the background. And it was also released as an AGA version, and finally it was also released as a CD32 version. And all those versions are slightly different. We're actually playing the ECS version at the moment, and that has 5 energy bars that you can see at the top of the screen. It has also the ability to launch the bombs by pressing the spacebar, and it has 5 in-game tunes contained within it. And that was released on a non-DOS disc, it's non-hard drive installable. The AGA version only has 4 health bars at the top of the screen. You activate the bombs by pressing the B key, and there is only 4 in-game tunes within that, and it is hard drive installable. The CD32 version has 4 energy bars at the top of the screen, and I'm not sure how to activate the bombs with that version, but we know that there is 10 in-game theme tunes which is played on the CD. So if you have the Amiga CD32 version, that contains the most music, but if you want the health, definitely go for the ECS version, because that contains 5 health instead of the others 4. On this particular level it gives us the beam platforms, which just needs some timing, and I don't mind the beam platforms. It makes change from collapsible platforms, and certainly you won't find too many spikes in this game either, which is another thing which ruins most platformers. So you won't just fall into spikes, what you will do is fall continually down the level. And you can see extra lighting effects on this level, and we just need to time that so we can run around it, and it's quite fun even at this stage, even though we're making a meal of it. So we can climb out and those platforms explode and pop, which isn't bad because at least, as I said, they're not collapsible platforms, so it means we can jump around and romp around, and sometimes you have to collect the bonuses before you go through into the cut through section, otherwise, as I say, you've just left those behind and there's no way back. So we're now rapidly heading towards now the end of the section, and it really does need us to take our time now and clear up these last few bonuses, because if we head on towards the end straight away, unfortunately it will mean yet again that we don't have enough. So in this case I'm taking my time clearing this level out, and you can see we can spiral our way around, but once those platforms blow up, unfortunately they'll stay blown up. So that means that sometimes once a platform has disappeared, that's it, and that will mean we can no longer collect those goodies. So just like the original Zool, you might have to from time to time rely on the milking aspect, unless you can find those cut through sections. And look at that, we've managed to find the bonus item and some extra time as well. So we're down to 1 life at the moment, which is not so great, and this game was played in the Lemon Amiga Games competition in perhaps 2020, and when we played this, definitely you need 5 lives by this stage, and then you have those lives spare going on to the 3rd world of the game, which is an Egyptian world. So destroying those platforms. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to milk the enemies at the end of this level by shooting them to get the goodies, and that means avoiding those energy sparks as well, but it also means we're going to take damage, and taking damage unnecessarily is definitely something which hampers the game, because sometimes you can't collect the health hearts quickly enough, and sometimes you can get blown up simply by trying to kill the enemies. So Zool 2 does have its good points and bad points, and if we'd have taken our time to clear up more of the level, we wouldn't have to do all this milking at the end of it, but that's just an aspect of this game. So we can romp around and jump around pretty freely like a turrican game, even though the firepower is pretty ready with our one single shot, we do have the spinning blade, and that can really help. So now, unfortunately, if you move off the screen, the goodies will also disappear off of it as well, so you'll have to make sure to try to keep those on the screen before you move off of it. So we're now at 98 goodies, and I'm waiting for the extra one before we can continue with the level. Still 98, and so hopefully that's it, 99. So now just a small matter of going for the end of the level boss, which if you have at least one life to spare, which I haven't at the moment, you should be able to get through the end of level 2 boss pretty easily, and it doesn't insult us with a really difficult boss, just like Zool 1, which really did give us some really difficult bosses right at the end. Again, we'll simply have to follow the same format of running underneath that, and as far as I know, this is the easiest boss in the entire game. It doesn't really give us too much problems unless we jump into that by mistake, and that's the only thing that we'll need to watch out for. But again, it's easy to do that by mistake, so that's probably where we're going to lose the last life. If I could level another criticism, it's that these bosses take too much firepower, and so this game hasn't quite been play tested enough for the game not to get boring every now and again. So that's our playthrough over. That's a quick run. You can see in the competition I managed to get over 100,000 points. But in this particular game I've only got 68,000 points, which isn't too great. Luckily we can type in the continues for the level passwords from the Lemon Amiga website. So let's enter that so that we can check out the third of, I think, maybe 5 or 6 worlds in this game. We've now chosen to play as the female character, and the female has a whip, just like Indiana Jones, and the female can also spin around as well in exactly the same way, and I think the whip has slightly more reach than the sword that we had with the ninja guy. Egyptian stages we'll also find our first spikes and also some fur rugs as well, which cover those spikes, and we'll have to walk on the fur rugs and those metallic spikes sometimes to get to hard to reach places. But for now it's a matter of collecting those anks and those scarabs and those gems and trying to trigger off the hidden platforms, which you can see do appear, and they're kind of a hidden, semi-hidden thing like glass until we can fire into those, I think, and then they should appear when we can fire into them. That means we can now hopefully reach those difficult platforms. Also slip slide off these platforms, and I'm not quite sure why it looks like we've got snow on some of these. I think that's supposed to be, well, bandages from a mummy. It's not actually snow. And we can find the Eye of Horus as well, and that gives us a clue to some of the bonus areas, and it's sometimes fun to find these. As you will see on this particular world, it also takes us all the way down to the bottom of it, so what could have been immense fun actually turns out to be very frustrating a bit later on. But again, I like this music. It's not the best music in the game, I do like it. Taking a leap of faith, we can now move on through towards the edge of that screen and hopefully find something that resembles the end of the level. And we can simply drop down there onto the spikes. Luckily the spikes will only take care of 1 point of health, so the bad news is those respawning enemies will respawn forever, so sometimes it really doesn't matter if you leave those floating around the level. And sometimes you can see some what looks like lava below us as well, bubbling away, and maybe it's blood, I'm not quite sure, but you can see some tremendous copper background effects at least on this game, and the controls means it is playable and it is possible to have some immense fun playing this game. And some people actually say that this game is better than the original Zool, because on the original Zool the second level required us to play tune on a keyboard, which was not intuitive, and if you didn't know about that you couldn't progress through the game. This game does not give us any silly tunes that we need to enter on an electric keyboard. Instead, all we need to do is to collect enough items to get to the end of the level and complete that quota, and we're just trying to do that, and yet again we're having to rely on that milking technique and having to rely on the fact that those ridiculous respawning enemies will carry on respawning forever. It's also possible to get hit very cheaply, and the cheap deaths come thick and fast, because if you're standing on a platform you can usually guarantee an enemy will wander into it. So let's rush now to the end of that level, and we're still having fun, it's still playable despite a few minor hiccups, and we've lost quite a few lives needlessly, but you can imagine if we were taking our time we could still at this point have some fun. But you can see bouncing now on spikes in order to get out of this particular area is difficult, and that's one of the annoyances of this game that I don't particularly like, and definitely this level requires us to jump on spikes once too often. Taking a look at those scores, the lowest score surprisingly came from the Lemon Amiga website, who awarded Zool 2, the OLCS ECS version, 72%, and I think that was slightly increased for the AGA version. And so the second lowest score came from ACAR, who gave this 75%, and CU Amiga awarded this game 76%. They said that this version of the game seems to be rushed, it seems dull and lifeless compared to the original Zool, and the music isn't as good, the playability isn't as good, and it's only a 10th rate game. It's got only a 10th of the sparkle of the original. So quite harsh words there from CU Amiga with its 76%. Amiga Action gave it 79%, Amiga Joker gave it 80, Amiga Down Under gave it 85, Amiga Force gave it 86, Amiga Power awarded it 86%, Amiga Dream gave this 90%, Amiga Computing gave this 90%, Amiga User International awarded Zool 2 90%, and The One also awarded this 90%. The highest score went to Amiga Format who gave Zool 2 93%, which means the average score is around about 8.5 out of 10. Moving on to the next world, you will find perhaps the best music in the entire game. It's another ambient trance number, and the music, for my money, is definitely the best part about this experience. And it only has 5 tunes, but at least it has 5, whilst the AGA version only has 4. Checking out the very next world, and the Egyptian world was too hard for me. I never got through the Egyptian world after playing this for 3 weeks in the Amiga Games competition, and that's because it's just too hard for me. And the next world, you can see sometimes the barriers disappear and the platforms disappear after so often, and that's yet again an annoying feature, because once those snowflakes stop spinning, it means that unfortunately they might disappear, and that means it will be dropped all the way down the level all over again. So it does have some annoyances. Also jump on Coke cans and things like that, but you can see spikes yet again ruining what could have been a good level, and the annoyances really start to pile up, just like Kid Chaos that we saw. Sometimes once you get further in the game, unfortunately the game simply lets us down by being too difficult. And now that techno music, which sounded so great on the electrical level, sounds fairly boring on this one. And I think there are maybe 6 or 7 worlds in the game, and I think this is the final one. And it's kind of a memory world where we get Einstein's equation and music and things like that. So we're not really doing very well, and those players who wanted to rush and jump through these levels like Sonic the Hedgehog will find they get battered by enemies, and it's really unfortunate that the playability starts to really take a dive. And if it was like Robocod, the playability would be fun all the way through, but it isn't. And it's a pity that once these platforms have disappeared, they'll stay disappeared, so it can be impossible to complete the game if you ruin your chances by blowing up too many of these platforms. It does have some very negative points in this game, and that's why it got a very negative and mixed opinion by some of the reviewers. And I really do love the atmosphere of the original Zool of this one, but some of the levels in Zool 2 are actually more fun to play. So I do have some respect for this, and definitely more respect than I used to have before we played this in the Lemon Amiga competition. So that's the end of my play. So thanks for watching this play guide of how to play the game, and I hope you know how to play it now. So if you fancy playing this, you know what to do. So I'll see you again in another play guide at some point sometime soon. Thank you.